Rb3k, thank you so much for coming on. Super excited to chat with you. All right, Rb3k, you are a very interesting persona because you are this is how I describe you: a trench warrior, meme coin trader, on-chain sleuth, and you also are a regular human with a full-time non-Web3 job, which you're very successful at. And so, I want to talk to you about all these different things. How you're balancing this, kind of trenches lifestyle with your regular job and everything like that. But to kick off the first question, how did you get involved in crypto?
Yeah, for sure. First off, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Morning.
All those things you said about me, pretty much, spot on. As far as how I got into crypto, I was put on to it by a very close friend of mine back in 2017. My first purchase. So he was a huge XRP bull. This is like when XRP was number 2, right behind Bitcoin. I remember him telling me how like he made this crazy amount of money on XRP, and I was like, well, damn, like I want some of this too. At first, I actually shrugged it off as just a scam. Like I just thought it was all going to go to zero. I was very heavily into TradFi at the time in my life. This is like before I pivoted into my own career that I'm in now. But my first purchase was Chainlink. This is like when it was below $1, and I held on to that thing for years, man, until it finally took off. And that's pretty much like once I started really going into the rabbit hole on like Chainlink, that's where I was like, okay, maybe crypto is not a scam, and maybe there is something with this whole decentralized finance and oracles and all that good stuff. So that's pretty much how I got into crypto to begin with.
That's awesome. Okay, so your friend that was in XRP, what was his like pitch? Because XRP back then, and I don't really know what they do today. I should probably kind of figure out what they do. But back then, it was really around remittance and how remittance is going to be changed by blockchain, and XRPs or Ripple's kind of leading the way. What was his conversation with you to be like, dude, XRP, it's a future XYZ? Like, what was he saying?
So his whole thing back then, it's changed now pretty significantly because we've both matured like dramatically since we first started. But his pitch back then was like they're the new Western Union or MoneyGram, essentially remittance, right? Like exactly what you said. And when I heard that at first, my initial thought was like, why do we need a new one? Like if the old one is working, like why do we, like who cares? Like I could just wire transfer, or I could do this, or I could do that. And I didn't really see the value in it until I tried it myself. And once I saw like the instant transaction with the minimal fee, that's when things really kind of hit me at first. And it was like, whoa, okay, like maybe this isn't a scam. Like maybe this is something that can actually, maybe not in the United States to start off, but like I come from a third world country before I emigrated. In third world countries, this can like take off to be something huge. Having that realization back in 2017, back then I thought I was late. And now you fast forward now, and it's like crypto's like all over the world, and it is part of a bunch of countries that are suffering from like massive inflation and all the kinds of like tyranny you see and all these things. So it did turn out to be true, and we grew alongside the ecosystem. But yeah, it was remittance, and now it's like a totally different thesis behind it.
Totally. Okay, so with Chainlink, what was first of all, how did you discover Chainlink? And then what was the thought process on, oh my gosh, oracles are going to be needed? Because like going from remittance and seeing that use case of, oh wait, I can send, value across any border almost instantaneously without a trusted third party. That's like, okay, I get it. Oracles is kind of like 5-6 steps into the blockchain ecosystem, in my opinion. So how did you discover it? And what was that like point for you where like, oh, this makes a lot of sense?
So Chainlink, so when I was much, much younger, I was terminally online. I was always like the guy who would be on a bunch of forums, right? I was always playing MMOs and like RuneScape and MapleStory and all these other kind of games. And I was always online just looking at stuff. I found Chainlink through 4chan. I spent a lot of time on 4chan, and funnily enough, there was this. I don't know how familiar you are with 4chan and like the biz.
Unfortunately, pretty familiar.
Yeah,
But now I have two. I'm married with 2 kids. I go on a lot less. But back in the day, man, I was playing MMOs and on 4chan, so similar to you.
right. So I started out on like B, then I moved over to Fit. Eventually, ended up on Biz. Like that. That's like the pipeline, right? And then on Biz, there was this guy called Ass Blaster. As funny as that sounds, and when I saw his posts, I immediately I thought like, all right, this dude's just like some weirdo, whatever. And the more I started reading about like the things he was saying, and a lot of it sounded like BS, but there was some points in there that he would make where it was like, whoa, like this is if this is true, then this is huge. Like this is like the basis of DeFi essentially, right? And DeFi back then was nobody knew what DeFi was. It was very nascent. It was very infant. And nobody knew like how big of an impact oracles would have on that entire ecosystem, and nobody knew how big the ecosystem would get, as big as it is today. So I finally pulled the trigger. I actually bought the top in 2017. I lost a lot of money, but that's just the way crypto works. You can't learn unless you lose some money. That's like the tuition you pay. I think I learned that from Pentoshi, the Penguin guy on Twitter. He's he made a very good point about like you can't really go to school for crypto because it's not, even if there is a program, it's not really like designed for the trenches, right? Like it's not really for trading and learning. The tuition you pay is the money you lose. So I lost money on Chainlink, but I held because I'm stubborn, and I went so deep down that rabbit hole, where I did believe in the tech, and I did believe that like DeFi would be big someday. I just didn't know when. So I held, I bought, I would throw a couple dollars at it here and there when I could. I worked full time, so whenever I had spare income, I would put money into Chainlink, and at the time it was below $1. And then like the whole COVID thing happened, it shot up to $19, and next thing I know, Davey Day Trade is buying it at 19, and I'm selling my bag into him, and then like a couple months later, it's at 50, and I'm just like, whoa, like what the hell? So, that's like the Chainlink story. I'm still a huge Chainlink bull. It's like one of my favorite. It's the token that kind of got me into the whole system to begin with. But I have some, disagreements with like what they're doing now, in terms of like tokenomics. But that's a conversation for a different day.
So, what was your evolution beyond? Because you mentioned, you kind of got involved Chainlink, and then that was kind of an Oracle based approach, or kind of an Oracle. You were figuring out, okay, oracles are needed for this entire ecosystem to effectively function. What was the evolution from that point on? Like, what were you okay? You made some money on Chainlink or on Link, and now you're diversifying into different tokens, or what was kind of your evolution beyond Chainlink?
Yeah, I mean, the evolution, it's always kind of been, crypto is a lot about attention, right? Like it's a lot about like the narrative or the meta of the time. And I think Kobe made a really like insane post about like playing the meta, right? And I think a lot of people still don't realize that, and crypto is still so new that just people just don't know about it. So it's really about like what's out there that people aren't talking about yet, and how can I get a position in that specific meta, or that narrative. So the evolution for me, immediately after Chainlink was DeFi, right? Because it's like, okay, oracles are like the foundation. So what protocols are going to build on top of those oracles, or what protocols are going to use those oracles, to do what they have to do. And that XRP friend of mine and myself, we kind of created this like portfolio, like an index per se. We called it Yasu, which was YFI, Aave, SNX, and Uniswap. And we held that for the majority of that what was it, 2020 2021 bull run. And man, like we killed it with just those four tickers. Like we got the Uniswap airdrop, we got the 1 inch airdrop, and we really rode that DeFi narrative like pretty hard. And at one point, I relied a lot of the alpha from that XRP friend, because he was really the one who was like deep in the trenches at this point in time, and he was telling me about like Spell, which was like Magic Internet Money, Daniele Sesta, that whole ecosystem. And so we kind of like started looking into this whole like the Ponzonomics of it and things like that. So we were smart enough to take profits at the time, but we were still kind of immature in the sense that we thought things could run hot for much longer. So obviously lost a lot of money after that whole situation as well. And then like during the whole FTX collapse and all this and all those like insane macro events that were going on during that time, it was just a matter of just like not unplugging from the feed, not unplugging from the ecosystem, not giving up.
So what is your approach to the space? Are you, because obviously you're trying to generate returns, but what are you focused on? Are you looking at, okay, this token has great fundamentals and they're generating X amount of fees? Is it, okay, the narrative of, AI is super strong because of, OpenAI's new, they're basically saying we're going to have AGI and like, I want to invest in everything AI, or, oh, this is purely a hype trade for XYZ reasons. I guess when you're approaching investing in the ecosystem, what factors are you looking at, or what's driving that specific decision making to enter a position?
I have like this barbell kind of strategy I take, where Bitcoin is king, right? Like Bitcoin is if in order for crypto to succeed, you want Bitcoin to succeed because it's the pioneer. It's just Bitcoin is crypto, right? That's what I believe personally. I know a lot of people aren't gonna like hearing that. Whatever, it is what it is. I don't really care. My portfolio is barbell heavily Bitcoin on one side, and then hype trades and narrative trades on the other side. So that's really like what it comes down to. I do have, like we mentioned before, I do have a career outside of crypto. My monthly expenses are taken care of. This is money that I could afford to lose. It's just and I take hype trades. Sometimes I don't make money, sometimes I make a lot of money, but at the end of the day, I think having a strategy where it's like having a barbell where you're in some kind of safer asset versus like a narrative trade, and then the other side of the barbell where it's riskier is definitely the way to go for me personally. And to answer your question about like what do I look at, for the safer side of the barbell, there's really not much, right? It's just like macro stuff, and I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that I know anything about macro because I don't. I just ride the wave. If it's up, it's up. If it's down, it's down. It is what it is. But the other side, couple things I look at are so FDV, market cap. Everybody looks at that. I look at tokenomics. Like I want to know if there's emissions and how heavily they're emitting and what the emissions are for. If emissions are going directly into holders' hands, I don't know. Maybe good, maybe bad. I'm not sure. I think when it comes to hype trades, fundamentals are mostly a meme. I don't really think they're super important. I think what's more important is the momentum behind it. If it can take hold as a major narrative, like AI did, for example. If that answers your question.
So, for example, there could be a coin that has like 2% circulating supply, like absolutely nothing, and it's set to emit a ton of coins over the next year. But if the hype and narrative is really strong, you're like, listen, it doesn't even matter because this narrative is just so strong. Let's just say AI, it's so strong that it doesn't matter that there's only 2% and there's going to be so many more tokens coming on into the market. I'll probably still make money here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the approach. And not all emissions are the same, right? Like for example, if a token is emitting directly into users' hands, That's great, but that's a lot of sell pressure. So it's like, do I want to hold this long term? I'm not sure. I don't know if the structure is there for it to really, last for more than a few months. I don't know. But then you have tokens like Aerodrome, for example, on base where they have emissions, but the Aerodrome structure is unique, and I don't completely have like the best. I'm not the best person to describe it. But Aerodrome's emissions are essentially rewarding users and for holding, right? Like you want to, it's the longer you hold onto your Aerodrome emissions, the bigger it becomes. So the bigger your bag becomes, essentially. So there's protocols out there like Aerodrome where emissions are, they're a good thing. Like as long as VE Aero is printing, like the protocol's printing, base is growing. You can definitely hold on to emissions like that. But then when you have emissions that, like I said, they're going directly into someone's hands and they might sell it, I'm not sure. I don't know how long that narrative can last.
Yeah, so if it's a pure airdrop with no incentivization structure for it to have people holding, it's like that is a little bit dangerous versus if there is some sort of emission structure or airdrop, but they're saying, hey, if you guys hold this for X amount of time, then we'll give you even more. And so that in that instance, you're like, okay, well, that's a much safer token to be involved with because the hit on the total supply or the total supply increase is not as impactful.
Yeah, incentives are everything, man. The industry revolves around incentives. Every post you see is incentivized in some way, whether it's direct compensation or whether they have a bag or whatever the case may be. Whether or not they disclose it, that's up to them. I don't really care. But like everything in crypto revolves around incentives. So if you're incentivized to hold a token, and if it is a good unique way to kind of like build that holder base, people will hold, and you see that with tokens like Aerodrome. Like it's one of the best performers of 2024. I expect it to be one of the best performers of 2025 as well, just because of how small base still is, and I think it has a lot of room to grow. And I think it's a good bet on the ecosystem. So, when it comes to the like left side of the barbell versus the right side of the barbell, I think Aerodrome is a good candidate to fit on the left side with Bitcoin, for example. Like if you wanted to make a bet on a growing ecosystem, right? So again, incentives, this is what it's all about.
And when you say incentives, it's basically like the promise or potential for future gains.
Exactly.
It's like you want to design all the incentives to be like, hey guys, if you hold this longer, then hopefully you'll make even more money, right? So I guess like, yeah, what are your views on that? Kind of segues into staking, because I mean staking is like the ultimate. Hey, if you hold this longer, you're going to get you get rewarded with the native token, and the theory is that the native token goes up, and then you earn even more. What are your thoughts on staking?
I mean, staking is more of a technical convo that I'm not really equipped to talk about, just because I'm not really the best person to like. I'm more of a narrative hype trader on the right side of the barbell. I hold tokens on the left side. I'm going to be honest with you though, I don't completely understand them entirely, but it is a strategy that has worked for me. As far as staking goes, again, it really depends. Like if you're staking to secure a network, I think it's phenomenal. Like Solana staking, Ethereum staking. But then you have like staking where it's like it's just emissions that are being paid out that and we don't know where the emissions are coming from. Those are probably going to get sold, and it kind of dilutes the market cap and price goes down, et cetera, et cetera.
So you personally are not staking.
I am staking.
You are staking.
I am staking. Yeah, I stake Ethereum. I've staked Solana in the past. I'm staking a couple of other base protocols. I don't know if you want me to like start shilling tickers. Like I don't really know.
Yeah, well, why not? Yeah, of course.
So right now, like I'm base heavy. I'm a power user essentially. I've been staking. BMX is one of my largest bags. Zero. So the thing I like about BMX is the protocol has zero emissions. So there's no new tokens being made. It's the staking yield comes directly from protocol revenue. So I'm staking BMX, and I think it's a good bet on like base DeFi as a growing ecosystem. So
what does BMX do?
BMX is so the lead dev is gonna not like when I describe it, because he describes it much way better than how I would. It started out as a decentralized perps platform. They launched a base native NFT marketplace with features that are not available in any other like market that you can think of, like Magic Eden, OpenSea, for example. And then they also have something called the wrapped BLT token, which is essentially the liquidity token of the entire protocol. But they're branching out to adding other liquidity pools against that specific liquidity token. So I can't go into the technicals because I don't know. I'm not that gigabrain, but there's a really good follow on X. His name is Meowphosaurus. You can definitely follow him. He's the one of the lead devs of that protocol, and huge gigabrain, huge baseball. He's one of like the best accounts you can like look into when it comes to base, essentially.
That's awesome. Very cool. So what are some other protocols or tokens that you're staking within the base?
I've been piloting this SocialFi app. It's called Altcoinist, the ALTT trenches. I think SocialFi will have a resurgence at some point in 2025. They currently you can stake ALTT into, so it's a subscription based chat room essentially. You pay a subscription to be able to stay there. People pay like it's like $20 or something to be in that network that I've created that people bounce ideas off and exchange information, and you can stake into that community's pool. So you can buy ALTT on the market, stake into the pool. Currently, the yields are being funded through Treasury. But that is transitioning, which it should. That is the correct way to do it, in my opinion. It's transitioning to where the yields will be paid by protocol revenue at some point. I don't know when that's going to happen, but it's still a very new protocol. It's only 3 or 4 months old now. Still in beta. It's a platform that I log into every single day, and I truly enjoy using it. So for me, it's like, okay, well, if I'm using this thing every day and I'm talking to people on it every single day, why would I not own the token, right? Like that's just the way I kind of think about it. But I think, like I said, SocialFi, especially on base, when it started out, it was on a very, very wrong footing, and it just wasn't the right time. And I do think the time is coming. I don't know when, obviously, nobody does. But I am positioned for it with ALTT.
So when you say SocialFi start off on the wrong footing, like what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, we all know Friendtech. Friendtech was a good idea on paper. The execution, it obviously didn't play out that well. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of balls to launch a protocol with that much hype around it at the start. So it's very high risk, high reward. And we know the lead dev was like, all right, screw this, I'm out. And he pretty much just, exited. And the protocol is now essentially like, from my understanding, there's no development on it happening at this point. People like publicly dumped the token for hundreds of thousands. And, I can't comment on all that, but I think that was more of the initial moment where SocialFi was put on the map. But I think it was too early, and I think the time hasn't come yet. But I do think the time is coming.
So speaking of these, kind of group chats and whatnot, how important are group chats and sharing ideas? And is that kind of is that how narratives are formed? Is that how you get your information, is from these group chats?
Well, not exclusively. I don't get my information exclusively from group chats. I do a lot of my work outside of crypto. I have a lot of downtime. I work like 12, 13-hour shifts. So within that time, I'm able to like do a lot of on-chain sleuthing. So I basically go out on the hunt to see like if I can find wallets of certain people or certain like organizations or hedge funds, et cetera, et cetera. And if it's a wallet that I think is something, I'll put it on like one of my trackers, and I'll just kind of watch and see like what movements they're making. Right. So that's where I would say I get a decent chunk of my information. But as far as the group chats, and I think networking is like crucial. Like if you want to become successful in crypto, you absolutely must have people that you can reach out to and bounce ideas off of and ask their opinion. And it's really just about like being humble and being like a good human, right? Like it's just like these are, we do a lot of shit posting on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of personas out there on this app, but you got to remember, like everyone behind the persona, it's another human being, right? Like we do have a lot of like bullying and a lot of like I don't know what's the term, like a lot of people who reply guy in negative ways and so on and so forth. It is what it is. Like it's we're all adults. Like if you can't handle it, then it's kind of on you, and maybe you should disconnect. I think personally, but at the same time, it's like these are all people behind the screen as well, and they have like really good ideas. So I think being like part of a network or having someone that you can talk to, absolutely crucial. And I want to shout out one of the biggest, like the meme that brought me into the base ecosystem to begin with was Dog and Me. And Dog and Me has been like this dude, like the dev, we call him Big Dog. He's been dragged through the mud and just like I don't even know how to describe it, but he's been like kicked down so many times, but this dude shows up every single day. Like no matter what day of the week, no matter if it's a holiday, no matter what it is, I think he's one of the best kind of like people to have in your network. So huge shout out to him. But again, to answer your question, group chats I do get a lot of information from, but there's a lot of noise in there too. So you have to really be able to weed a lot of that out.
Are these group chats, are they primarily on Telegram? Are they on Discord? Like, or the altcoinist? Like where are you talking to these folks?
Yeah, Telegram. It's so Telegram and X, those are the two main ways. Like X, so X is still relatively new to me. I was a very small account this time last year. I think I only had like 300 or 400 followers. And I think majority of them were bots. So I've grown, like my account now I think is at like 8,000 or something, or maybe 9,000. And a lot of that was built through just I reply guide people. Like that's really all it is. Like again, these are human beings behind these personas, right? Like you want to talk to these people as if you were standing in front of them. So I generally try not to say things that I wouldn't say in front of their face, right? Because it's just like, why? Like everyone deals with something outside of social media. Like why add on to it? That's just my personal stance on it, right? So very rarely you'll see me like taking part in like arguments and drama and whatnot. So, but again, like where I kind of get into the networks and the being able to like bounce ideas off of people, just be a genuine human behind the screen, reply guy people, reach out to them. You'll be surprised who responds to you. And again, I think having the network is extremely important. Altcoinist makes it possible for people who are like just starting out, like especially micro accounts. So accounts with like, I don't know, like less than 2,000 followers or something, where they don't have as much reach. They're able to get into private chats with people that have been able to establish a better, like a much more defined network and bounce questions off of people who are like deeper in the industry.
So can you walk me through the flow of how the information is spread to the other people in the group? Like, for example, you find something, let's say it's a really cool like deep in project. You're like, hey guys, found this cool deep in project. I'm going to invest in it because it has really good emissions and it's going after, robotics and deep in. Or well, like, can you just kind of walk me through that flow? Because I'm trying to figure out how does something go from, okay, discover this on Twitter, or just like, where did you discover it? How do you frame it to your to the fellow people in the group chat? And just take me through that whole like journey from like finding something to like telling people about it to maybe investing into it.
So I'll do AI as the example because that's like the most recent thing. AI was put on my radar. I don't know exactly when. I was able to talk to one of the developers, like one of the founders of Virtual, for example, right? And he was kind of like telling me his idea, and he was giving me the rundown about like Luna, for example, and like they've been developing for, I think, when we before that person and I met, it was I want to say like 9 months of development that they've been undergoing at that point. I don't remember exactly when. I would have to check. So I didn't at that point. It was something I put on my watch list. I didn't buy it. I didn't share it with anybody. It was just something that I was watching, right? And then AI took off on Solana first, I want to say. I'm not entirely sure if that's true. I would have to check, but I do think there were some AI tokens on Solana that ran,
Maybe
or
like
maybe
Goat or something.
yeah, I think it was Goat. I want to say it was Goat. So attention was all over Goat at the time. And at this point, my altcoinist group chat was maybe like 150 people, right? It's not a huge chat, but because there was this subscription in place, like these are people that are serious, right? Like they're not there just shilling tickers and just trying to get like exit liquidity per se, right? So when Goat was taking off, one of the people in the group chat brought up the Virtuals protocol, and they were like, "Hey, this might be like this might be the AI thing on base, right?" And this is when I kind of chimed in and was like, "Yeah, I spoke to the founder like a couple months ago. It's on my watch list. It's something that I've been looking at. What information do you know about it?" And they were like, once that person starts spitting information at me, I start spitting information back at them. And then it's like, okay, well, it's taken off on Solana. Base is always kind of like, it's always a delayed reaction because there's much less attention on base. It's just the nature of the game. Like narratives take a little, I want to say like maybe a couple of weeks longer to take off than any other chain, like Solana, for example. At that point, like we started seeing Virtual and Luna, the prices were going up, and they're going up a lot and very quickly. So it's like, okay, well, do you pull the trigger? You're buying a top. Is it the top, or is it like, just the top for now? And there's going to be a top that's much higher later on, right? When you put the idea out into this group chat of 150 people, now you have 150 people that are like, they're serious, right? Like they want to make money. They're not looking for like some garbage. Like then you have all these people that start chipping in and looking for information, and who knows where people can find stuff. Like people use different tools all over the place. So long story short, we end up like collectively, I think a lot of us start buying like Virtual at 50 million market cap and Luna at 16 to 20 million market cap.
Wow.
And at that point, it's just like a matter of like, okay, the narrative right now is GOAT. Is it going to transition onto base? And on base at the time, there were only two AI projects. There was Virtual and Spec. It was SPEC. I don't even remember the name of the protocol, unfortunately. Sorry, guys. But like then it's like a question of tokenomics and fundamentals, right? It's like which one is positioned in a way where it has less resistance. Which one has the which one is the path of least resistance, right? And when you're deep enough in the trenches and you research like tokenomics and things and fundamentals, you would immediately know like Virtual stands out better because there's less overhang. And I think I even tweeted that at one point as a reply to somebody, like a big Twitter account. I can't remember. I'd have to look it up. But they were basically debating like whether they should go with SPEC or Virtual. And I remember tweeting something like Virtual is the play because there's less overhang. And then like a month or two later, this thing is at like 1 billion market cap, right? So the flow is really just getting the idea out there, and then all of these people who are well versed in the network start chipping in ideas on why they think it might run, and then it's just really a matter of pulling the trigger whether you want to buy it or not, right? And at the time it was a top blast, and it wasn't the top, so I think it's also a lot of there's some luck involved in there as well, and being in the right place at the right time.
And when you're the one bringing the idea to the group, are you kind of like defending it? You're because it was our Rb3k brought this. therefore like, okay, I feel like I have to kind of defend this myself, even if I
No,
just found it, or is it just like, hey guys, I found this. What do you think?
no. There's so the nice thing about this like trench that we have right now, very professional environment. And people understand like, like no matter who shares it, everyone is looking to either validate it or poke holes into it. And the way the environment and the atmosphere of the chat is set up is like, okay, we welcome it. Like we want you to tell us like why this might not pump, right? Like why this might not be the play. Because you have to know, like these are things that you have to know in order to be able to put your money into. The group chat is it's set up in a way where we have like this separate channel for degenerate gambling, we call it. So this is more of like your faster hype plays where people will share like sub 5 million market cap coins and whether they think like if it'll take off or not based on like who owns it or what the narrative is. And then we have more of a general chat where people are more they're more tactical, right? Where it's like even if I share something, it is kind of like more pressure on me because I'm like the leader, quote unquote, of the chat. But I do try to make it a point to like for people to understand like you're not joining a call group, right? Like we're not making calls here like tickers that are gonna pump 20x the next day. That's not really what the group is about. It's more about throwing out an idea, a narrative, and then saying like, hey, this is where I think the hot ball of money might be rolling into next. And these are the tickers. And this is why I think the money will be flowing into these tickers, whether that's fundamentals or KOLs or whatever the case may be.
So I want to talk about position sizing because, virtuals now is obvious, of course, because it went up a lot. But before, when you found it, it wasn't that obvious. So
No.
how are you managing risk in the sense of like, all right, you found this thing, could have a lot of potential. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Who knows? And you said that your overall portfolio is that barbell of Bitcoin and then the more risky plays. So in that risky bucket, are you putting in? I don't know. Let's say it's $1 million. I just pretend. Are you like, all right, I'm going to virtuals is pretty promising. I'm going to put in, 1% or 10% or 50%. Like how are you managing that risk and determining position size?
So one thing about me, I'm never 100% crypto. And that's just because, I have a young family. I have bills in real life that need to be paid and I can't afford to not have money. It's just like, if I do, then my family is homeless, right? Like that's the reality of the situation. I'm blessed that I have a monthly income of, that covers majority of my bills. But at the end, we're all trying for the same thing, right? Wealth and retirement, and being able to raise our families. That's the basis. So I always 70-30. No matter how bullish I am, 70% of my funds are in crypto. I own no equities. 30% is in cash. Of that 70%, half of that is on the one side of the barbell. The other half is in the risky side. Normally on the risky side, it's sitting in cash unless I have like positions that I believe will take off in the next 3 months, or for example, right? Like in the case of virtuals, I never all in anything. It's just not what I do. I'm not a believer in like full port in, full port out. I don't think that's for me. It's never worked, and I don't think it ever will. I'm very comfortable buying tops if I think it's not the top. Virtual was, I don't want to say it was an obvious top blast because no top blast is ever obvious. There's a pretty significant amount of risk that goes into making that decision. So I put in a very small portion of that like 50% bucket. I want to say like maybe I think it was maybe like 5% at the time of that 50% bucket. It really wasn't much. But my whole thing is like I bought a lot on the way up as things were progressing. So even though my initial entry was great, it wasn't like the big entry, right? The entries became bigger as the market cap became bigger. And the same thing applies to Luna. The only exception to that rule was when Virtual and Luna both took off, and they're at this point they're like well above like I think it was like 500 million Virtual, and Luna I want to say was like around 100 million or something like that. at that point, that's when I started looking deeper into the virtual like trenches, quote unquote, like the new AI agents. And I saw AIXBT. I saw AIXBT at 300K market cap. I didn't buy it at the time because I was kind of like iffy. I wasn't sure, and put it on my watch list. Followed the account, and I would check on it like pretty much daily. And what made me finally pull the trigger is from 300K market cap, it hit 6 million. So I was already like kind of annoyed that I didn't buy it at 300K. But one day when I logged into the Twitter account and I looked at the profile, I saw a couple of high signal follows on there where that was kind of like, okay, if they're positioned in this, there's a good chance they are. Then this is probably going to be the next big thing. And that's when I broke my rule of like never positioning big at first. I bought a little over 1% of the supply of AIXBT at 6 million market cap.
Wow.
It actually immediately dumped right after. So I was kind of regretting that decision, but then it was just a matter of like, okay, well I made a lot of money on the other two, so I'm comfortable losing a bit. So I'll just wait and see what happens, and it turned out to be like one of the best trades, along with virtual and AXVT turned out to be one of my best trades of 2024.
Wow. All right. So a lot more questions, but how do you avoid rug pulls? Because I mean, there's a lot of coins out there, and not all of them have great teams behind them. Some of them, a lot of them have nefarious teams behind them. So are you using a tool or are you just word of mouth? How are you avoiding the scams?
That whole thing has kind of it's evolved throughout the year. Before all these like token launchers became the meta, a lot of projects were being like launched manually, and those had flaws in them, and they could be rug pulled. One of my biggest losses of 2024 was Void. I don't know if you were familiar with that, but I lost like six figures on that rug pull, and the dev like just stole the money. And I don't even know. Like this dude. Long story short, he's a moron because he ended up losing it because I track his wallet. So he stole like 500,000, and he's down to like 50K or something trying to trade. It's just karma's real. It is what it is. But as far as rug pulls go, it was much harder in the beginning of 2024 because you were relying on tools like Token Sniffer, you were relying on tools like Rick, like the Rick bot on Telegram. They usually are able to, well, back then they were able to identify whether a token was a honeypot or not. And they were able to identify if the contract had any similarities to recent rug pulls. But now that the meta has shifted, there's a lot of coins that are being launched on. Obviously, Pump Fund, big one. Kind of hard to rug that one unless it's like bundled, which we see a lot of now. So I pretty much don't buy anything off Pump Fund. I just it's just not my game. Like if it's not my game, it's not my game. It is what it is. And then you on base you have like you have things like Ape Store, you have things like Virtuals Launcher. Obviously, you have things like Clanker, that entire ecosystem. These things, the liquidities are locked usually, so you usually don't have like a liquidity risk rug pull. But the risk that exists now is people launching tokens, like they stealth launch tokens, and then they snipe a big part of the supply, and then they'll spread it out across, I don't know, like 10, 15, 20 different wallets. So at that point, I think tools like BaseScan and Arkham are pretty important, as well as bubble maps, right? So those are like the standard tools that I use to avoid rug pulls. But I think the most important thing about avoiding a rug pull is really about managing your risk, right? This is also, again, why I never go full port in, full port out. I don't want to put my entire portfolio into something that hasn't proven itself yet. I don't know if it's a rug pull. Nobody does really, besides the people doing the rug pull. So it's like, do I want to risk my entire portfolio on that, knowing my family won't be able to eat the next day if I do? No, I'm not going to do it. So it's really just about individual risk management.
Totally. So meme coins. So you mentioned you don't participate in Pump Fund. I thought you were. I figured that you'd be active on there. I guess that's the question. The question that comes to mind is, how do you view meme coins in general? Are you
I love
Oh, you love meme coins.
I love meme coins, man.
So you love meme coins, but you don't participate in pump fund.
So I'm not really on Solana that heavily. Solana is a totally different animal. It's for me, it's not an easy, very different trade style than what you would see on like Base, for example, right? On Solana, things move fast. They go up fast. They go down fast. It's not really my game. It's not something like I don't have an edge there. So for me, it's like if I don't have an edge, then why should I participate? Right? It's just not for me. It's not for me. It is what it is. It's not for everybody. So I don't participate on Pump Fund. The last coin. So I did buy something recently, actually, on Solana. That it ended up rugging. It was like yesterday. It went to zero. So I won't even share the ticker. But I did catch a bit of whiff. And I didn't even buy whiff on Solana. I bought it on Bybit when it was when it got listed. And then I besides that and like on one AI play, I really don't participate on Solana all that often. But the question about meme coins, like meme coins are what brought me into Base to begin with, right? Like we had that insane. So again, it's Base is this ecosystem where narratives take a little longer to cook. That's really all it is. Back in January, February, March, when WIF was going on that parabolic run, everyone was looking at the next WIF, but nobody was looking at Base. So it's like, okay, well, this is Coinbase's layer two. They want it to succeed. There's a pretty good chance that something's going to happen here. So I started digging on the Base ecosystem, and I found Dog in Me at like, I don't even remember. I think it was like 1.5 million market cap or something like that. So I bought some of that, and that ended up running to 120 million. I actually round trip that bag. I'm a strong community member and bag holder, and I'm gonna be holding it for a very long time because I'm very loyal. I when something kind of rewards me as heavily as like Dog in Me does and the dev does, I will stay loyal to it, and that's just the way it is for me personally. But then like I was the person who kind of highlighted that Ansom's Friendtech wallet was public, and you could see like what coins he was holding on Base. So there was a huge meta around like the coins he was holding. So I made a killing on some of those coins, and like memes. It's all about attention and who's like championing them, right? Like who the personality is that's behind the meme coin. So it's a lot of like you need to know people in the industry essentially, and if you don't know people in the industry, you need to find their wallets and you need to see what they're holding. And SPX is another like play that I was involved in. I found what I thought was Murad's wallet back in, I don't even know when. It was like when SPX was like 20 million market cap. I bought some. It fell to like 10 million market cap. But I saw what I thought his wallet didn't sell, so I added. And next thing you know, it was something I shared. So funny story. Murad's SPX play was the first alpha, quote unquote, that was discovered in the altcoinist trench that I created. So at the time, there was only about 20 members in there. And I have this channel called Wallet Tracking. So it's like, it's just a bunch of wallets that I think belong to certain people. I won't dox who they are, but I will say because Murad's wallets are public now that Zach exposed them, one of his wallets were there, and SPX was the top holding. He had a ton of it. So at the time, I wasn't sure if it was his or not, but then later on, it was confirmed that it was. So it came up in the group chat, and they were like, "Hey, is this actually Murad?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think it is, and this is why." So people who were in that chat in the very first days bought SPX at like 10 million market cap, and then the very next day, Murad announced that SPX is his number one pick on the list, and it went parabolic. It went to like 700 million market cap from there. So it's like, it's really a matter of, again, knowing people, and if you don't know people, finding their wallets. That's really like if you're a new person in Twitter. I know people say like wallet watching it's like a feminine behavior or whatever. I don't care.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I
I've never
mean,
heard of wallet watching.
yeah, you see it all the time.
Feminine.
It's like wallet watching, pocket watching, like it's a behavior that's like kind of frowned upon on crypto Twitter.
Really? That's crazy.
Yeah, but I don't care. Like you know what else is frowned upon on crypto Twitter? Base. Like for the longest time, Base, the Coinbase's layer 2 was like the Fed chain, the centralized chain, this, that, blah, blah, blah. I do not care. It's making me money. It's making people around me money. What does it matter? Like if you can make the bag, make the bag.
So okay, so that what's really interesting is that you said that your connectivity is mostly in base, and Solana is a different beast.
Yes.
And so the people around you, the people in your chat, and the people you interface with, they're all base people. Like they're not necessarily Solana people. It's almost like a different country. Is that?
I would say 95% of the people in my chat are base exclusive. Yeah, it's a totally different animal. Like it is a totally different country. It's like it's I don't even know how to describe it to you.
Different
Like
financial systems. It's like not
yes.
not even speaking the same
Yeah.
language.
Like in terms of trade styles, totally different. Obviously, the underlying tech is like, it's a blockchain. They have DeFi protocols. They have memes. They have the same offering, but the attitude of the participants is totally different. And I think a lot of the disconnect from like the broader crypto community, like the traders. I'm not talking about the devs because I'm not a dev. I can't speak dev. I don't know. But I can tell you as a trader, because the people are not used to and don't understand the base trade style yet, is why there's so much negativity towards it. So when a lot of these big personas come to base, they end up losing money, and then it's like, screw this chain. It's a Fed chain. I don't care. I don't want to put any more. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, no, it's not like I don't know. I don't know if it's a centralized chain. I don't know if the federal government is involved in it. I have no idea, but I also don't care. Like I'm not doxxed on social media, but I'm a totally doxxed person that pays my taxes. What do I care? Like I'm making money. I'm doing it legally, and it is what it is.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So would you say the two communities, Solana versus Base? You said the traders are different in Solana. Are they more short term? Like they will experience a 30-40% increase or pump, and then they're just like, I'm going to sell and move on to something else. Versus Base is more, okay, this long term can go 3, 5, 10x.
With Solana, again, I don't spend enough time there to be able to tell you what I think the typical Solana trader is like. Solana has obviously every major meta of 2024 started on Solana, so you got to pay respect there. Like they have all the top traders there now. All the life-changing, a lot of the, I'm not going to say all, but a lot of the life-changing gains were made on Solana in 2024. I can't tell you what the typical Solana trader is like, but based on my experience, it's very hard for me to buy a coin on Solana at a small market cap and hold it for like 3 months. And I'm never confident that it's going to take off at some point. I just don't know, because what I've witnessed on Solana is like, the initial pump is the pump, and then it kind of falls off the face of the earth for God knows how long. And then just out of the blue one day, it just like kind of comes right back up, and nobody knows why. Right. So that's the way I view the Solana trenches, quote unquote. Right. The base trenches are very different. The base trenches start off small, always. They never pump to massive valuations at first. So like even if a coin takes off, let's say there's only one exception to that, and that was the Miggles, that whole Miggles thing back in July. Miggles started off small and it ran to 100 million within like 2 days. For base, I mean for Solana that's not big, but for base that is a big run at the time, back in July. But after that, you were able to buy coins on base at much smaller valuations and hold on to them for a while, because you knew that the floors would just be rising. And this is like after July I'm talking about. So the trenches in Solana, the trenches on base are a lot more patient in that regard. Like people will buy like 1 million, 2 million, 3 million market cap coins and just sit on them for like 3, 4, 5, 6 months while the dev is deving, right? While the dev is doing his thing. And because there's not much attention on base, the run ups are always they're delayed. Like you can really like spend a lot of time networking and figuring out the tech behind it and building positions. And next thing you know, you have the next virtuals, and we just don't know what that is at this point today. But something will come up in the future, I believe.
All right, so I want to move the conversation over a little bit to the kind of the products you're using, because there's so much. You have a ton of knowledge, but in terms of the tools that you're using in order to enact that knowledge and to kind of increase your win rate, I think that's super important. And you kept mentioning like finding wallets and tagging wallets. I think you briefly mentioned that you're using like Arkham and a few other tools, but can you walk me through like which platforms or products you're using to find wallets and track those wallets?
Yeah, I mean, it's not much. I use, obviously everyone uses Basescan, right? Or Etherscan or whatever scan, SoulScan, whatever it is. That's the first thing that I start out with. I spend a lot of time watching the buys on like, so for example, there's on Telegram, there's something called like BuyBot or Bubble BuyBot. We all know what that is. It shows you the purchase of the specific coin that it's tracking. It gives you the amount that they spend, how much they have in their wallet, and what percent of the supply they bought, and it's just some basic information, right? So occasionally you'll have buys that are outsized on base. So something about base is that people don't realize is that the liquidity is very thin. So when there's a big buy, it moves the price pretty significantly. And to me, that's kind of like something that I want to look at, because to me, that's like, okay, maybe this is a new wallet that's not familiar with the ecosystem. Let me see where it was funded from. So then I'll take that wallet, I'll go into Basescan, I'll start doing my digging on like where the wallet was funded from. I'll put it into Arkham. Arkham tags, like sometimes Arkham will have information on like if a X account is linked to the wallet, things like that, right? So I use a lot of those tools to identify the wallet, but then I also use a lot of my network as well. So there's a lot of Telegram channels that are free that you can join from some of the top personas on X. It's very hard to find the ones that are not just shilling tickers. You really want to hone in on the ones that are just like actually sharing like valuable information, whether it's macro or whether they find like wallets of certain, I don't know, institutions or whatever the case may be, right? So that's another tool I use. It's more of like a social aspect of it, not really technical. So I said Basescan, I said the buy bots, I said the Arkham. Oh, I also use CeeLo, Cielo. I don't know how you want to like. So once I find a wallet that I think is interesting, I will input it into the CeeLo or Cielo Telegram bot, and you can set parameters. So it's like, what chain do you want to track? What size transactions do you want to track? Do you want to see if they're staking or if they're putting liquidity somewhere, if they're buying a certain token, XYZ? So I'll set my parameters, and then I'll just sit and wait and watch. Like I'll see how they're moving money, where they're moving it to, what they're buying, what they're staking, so on and so forth. And I'll do that for quite a while. Sometimes I'll sit on wallets for months at a time, and just to see like, I'm essentially looking for trends or patterns, right? You cross-reference that with like what you see on what's public, so like X, for example, and you will be very surprised at how poor some people's like operational security is, because it's very easy to find big people's wallets, especially like when it comes to base. So Arkham, Basescan, CeeLo, Telegram bot, the Telegram chats from like some of the bigger personas. I think that's mainly it. And then obviously my group chat. Like, so if I find a wallet that I think is interesting, I'll put it in the chat. And then I have like 300 people who, they start sleuthing too, and they start finding things that I didn't see. And you kind of pinpoint like, okay, like, yeah, this is this person, and or this institution or this VC or this hedge fund, and this is what they're buying, and this is where they're positioning, and you can kind of just like make decisions based off of that.
Yeah. Okay. So, and this wallet tracking, are you simply, do you have like a spreadsheet, like a Google sheet that you're putting in all these wallets, or do you have a product or tool or platform that you're using to input all these wallets and like tag them with specific information that's relevant to your knowledge?
Yeah, that's CIELO, the
Okay.
CIELO. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but they have a web app, a Discord bot, and a Telegram bot.
Okay.
So I use the paid version because it has like no limitation on how much you can how many wallets you can track. So I'll input everything of interest there with my personal tags, and then I'll keep like for the most part, I keep a mental model of where trades are going. But for the wallets that I've been sitting on for months, I'm no longer able to store them mentally. So I start writing them down. Like I'll write them in my phone in my notes app, and I'll be like, this wallet did this on this date, and then I'll kind of just track it
That's awesome.
for as long as I can. Yeah.
That's very cool. And your group chat, they're all digging into whatever kind of addresses you post as well, and say, hey guys, this wallet has been buying this new coin. We should watch it, and then they kind of start digging and can maybe surface some interesting information.
Yeah. So when you have a group of people that are serious and not just shilling tickers, which I think that's why altcoinist is going to be like the SocialFi platform of base, because that's essentially so I mean, listen, there's something for everyone. Some people want the call group, right? Like it is what it is. Some people just want that quick and easy 2x get in, get out, whatever. Like everyone has their own, their own click or whatever it is. But I think being able to find a piece of information, dropping it into a group chat and being like, hey, I think this is XYZ. Can you guys take a look? And then you have a group of like 350 people who are like, they've dedicated their time into trying to figure out information. They start unearthing some things that you would never have even thought of. And it just becomes this network that's so valuable to like placing trades. And I think the best is yet to come from it. Yeah.
Also, so for the actual trading, what tell me about the products there. Like, what wallet are you using? Are you using like one of those platforms like Defined or Deck Screener, or tell me about that infrastructure for the actual trading.
Yeah, so like the watch lists are all on Gecko Terminal and Deck Screener. So those are the two like watch lists I use. As far as trading, like I'm not really a technical trader per se. Like I don't place like limit orders, and I don't really do DCAs unless or excuse me, not DCAs, TWAPs. Like I don't really do that unless liquidity is really bad and I want to build like an actual like a real position on something I believe in. So for TWAPs, I've used it's called Definitive Fi on base. I used that to twap into BMX. And I've been holding that for a while now. But the reason I did that is because when I found BMX, the liquidity was so small, I wasn't able to size into it without like eating crazy slippage. It's different now, so there is enough liquidity to exit or enter like into it now. But back when I found it, it wasn't the case. But again, I'm not really a technical trader. I don't do limit orders. I don't do I don't really do like indicators and stuff like that. I'll track, like if I look at the Bitcoin chart, I'll look at like the moving averages, stuff like that. But in terms of the actual execution, it's very sloppy. I'll just like market buy, and like it is what it is. Like if I eat slippage, I eat slippage, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, the upside in crypto is so large that it's like, market buying works totally fine. If this was TradFi, it'd be kind of a different story, but
yeah, for sure.
That works.
For sure.
Okay. So in terms of wallet, like MetaMask, or is there any specific wallets that you prefer?
The left side of my barbell is old cold storage. I never touch it. It's never been collected or connected to a hot wallet or a protocol or anything. I buy it on a hot wallet and then send it to cold storage. Those are, that's just something that like I've done for a very long time, and I'm just gonna stick to doing that. And then as far as the right side goes, I use hot wallets. My go-to on desktop is Rabby. I think it's like one of the most complete wallets like that you can find. But I'm not always on desktop. I'm very mobile. I have a young family, so there's a lot of traveling that takes place for me. So when I'm on mobile, I'll use like either Zero Ion. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
Xerion. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
how to pronounce it, but
Zerion I use Rainbow Wallet, and I use Phantom. I've actually, so once Phantom added base, I started like playing around with it. I think they have something very special, like mobile wise. I think the user experience is very smooth, and there's a lot to be learned from like that simplicity that they have. And then obviously I use Coinbase Wallet as well because it's base is layer two. You have to kind of you want to be up to date on what features they have there as well. So on mobile I use a lot more, but on desktop it's just the one, and cold storage is just cold storage. There's nothing happens in cold storage unless it's a transfer.
which are there products that you wish existed that don't? You're like, man, I wish that there was this tool that would make me do XYZ. Like, if you could wave a magic wand and create that product, what do you think it would be?
Oh man, that's a good question. Well, for one, I would love to have a phone with unlimited battery.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. That's a really good question. I will say, I wish copy trade bots existed in Telegram. And I think that's coming. I do think that's going to be like the next iteration of SocialFi, where you can track wallets and the bot will be like, "Hey, this wallet just bought this. Do you want to buy? Yes or no?" And then you click it, and then the execution is done immediately, right? So you have like that immediate entry. If it's like a meme coin, for example, right? Because those move very fast, and the entry does matter. I think the tools we have now are pretty. I don't want to say they're sufficient, but if you're deep in the trenches, the tools that are out there now do a very good job at being able to identify opportunity. But I do wish that they would refine the user experience on a lot of them. I think that's what's holding a lot of like crypto back right now. I think for newcomers, it's still like all about user experience, and they're like someone starting out brand new in crypto. Like when they hear when they hear that if they don't save their secret phrase or whatever, and all they could lose all their money, that's like
Yeah, it's terrifying.
the biggest, it's the biggest downturn, the
Yeah.
biggest turnoff. So I think I think that a lot of the products in the trenches exist besides like a very good copy trade bot. But I think it's more about refining the user experience. Yeah.
So I guess in terms of like product and products you use, what's giving you the biggest hiccups or kind of making you slow down or kind of like, man, I don't know, I wish bridges were faster, or like, what are the pain points in your experience of just using all these different products and tools?
I've been doing it now for so long that for me it's
Second
more
nature.
yeah, it's second nature. It's a lot of muscle memory. One thing that terrifies me though is that I find myself signing transactions without reading it
Totally.
because I've been doing it so often. So for me, that's something that I've been consciously making an effort to, like, before I click sign, I make sure I look at it. And I think that's something that happens to a lot of like the veterans, like the crypto veterans. Like it's one of the easiest ways to engineer an attack on someone's assets, right? But sending like a fake or a malicious request or something like that. I think my biggest pain point is the wallets not flagging them as malicious. Like I feel like if there was like the magic wand question, if there was a way for these wallets to be like, hey, you're not signing what you think you are, like don't do it, or like make sure you're double checking something like that.
Or like, this wallet that made this coin is a known rug puller. Like, don't.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could be done in the future. I don't know. Again, I'm not a dev. I don't know the technical side of stuff. I don't know how hard it would be to implement, but as far as like my biggest pain point, it comes to OPSEC, like being able to secure my assets, and I'm basically always operating with my eyes over my shoulder. Like I'm always like
Totally.
I'm always trying to make sure that there's no vector that can be exploited, and my life savings is gone. Right, like
Yeah.
that's like my biggest fear.
Totally. All right, so moving on a little bit to kind of the big picture stuff. What specific trends are you super excited about? And I think you might say AI. I just want to mention that Kaido, and that's also something we didn't talk about. Kaido, it's a
Yeah.
K I,
Mhm.
or Kaito. The mind share for AI is now like 72%. I think this was like two days ago or something, which is just crazy. So I guess what trends are you excited about? Is it AI?
It's actually not. Like
It's not.
I
Oh,
no, like I do think the AI trade is one, it's very profitable, obviously. It's also very interesting, but I still think we're early to it. In the sense that we're too early. Like I think crypto has a way of finding a narrative that has like a potential product market fit and then pricing it to the point where it's like, okay, yes, this is definitely the next big thing, right?
yeah,
That happened with DeFi back in the last cycle, right? Like we thought like we found DeFi. DeFi is it. Like this is gonna be the next world changing innovation, and it's gonna be built on crypto. And I do believe that, but we were too early back then. Like we were too early to that trade. I think we may be experiencing. I don't want to say the same thing, but something to a similar degree with AI right now. I think crypto is too early to the trade. And I think like these AI agents have some proving to do, like before we can, say like, yes, this is definitely the next big thing. If you think about it, right? Back in 2020, we said DeFi was the next big thing. It's now 2025, and what major companies or what major governments or who's using DeFi right now, really?
right.
Right? Like, yeah, we have like Larry Fink. He's talking about tokenizing all the assets on Ethereum, and we have like World Liberty Fi, the wallet associated with Trump. He's starting to buy those DeFi protocols, but this is 4 years later, right? Like we're talking 4 or 5 years later. So are we too early to AI? My gut says yes. I think we are too early to AI. I think it's still very profitable, and there's going to be more opportunities. I don't think the best AI protocols are in existence yet. I think they're coming. Whether they'll be crypto related, I think they will be, is to be determined. I personally think it will be crypto related though. My biggest trend, I honestly want to say it's still DeFi. I know,
DeFi. Interesting.
yeah, I think DeFi at this point has been largely ignored because it didn't really move much until towards the end of the year. But I think DeFi is finally in a position where where it can go mainstream. And I'm not talking about people like you and me, or even people like in our normie circles. I'm talking about people who have never once in their life touched crypto. I think DeFi is in a position where it can integrate into mainstream apps where the end user will be able to use the app without even realizing that they're using a blockchain. I think that's, to me, that excites me the most, and I think DeFi protocols are in the best position to capitalize on that. And I think Base and Coinbase has the right idea where that's the direction that they're pushing in. Like they're pushing in a direction where they want people to use Base without even knowing that they're using Base. It's all going to be app front ends that are using decentralized backends. Is my theory and what I'm most excited about.
That's super interesting. So and you're talking about it from a perspective of like real usage, not necessarily from, hey, we have a new administration coming into the US who's more pro crypto and are going to be putting in some rules that make this stuff kind of widespread. You're saying like, no, just from like a pure usage standpoint, like people using stable coins, people in Turkey or Brazil or wherever kind of just using this stuff in their day-to-day life. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah. And I think the being able to refine the user experience to the point where they don't have to worry about like their private keys or their secret phrases, and not worry about losing their money for due to stupid user error and things like that. I think like, obviously the new administration it's a huge deal. I do think the market is pricing it to perfection though, and I think we're seeing some of that right now, like with the downturn we're having today on the day of the recording. But I think the real meat of crypto is going to start when we have that one breakthrough app that integrates a DeFi backend with a very like Robinhood esque front end, right? Like that's what I or not even Robinhood, like something as simple as like Zelle, for example. Like
Yeah,
what I think once the Zelle of crypto, or excuse me, once Zelle is built on top of DeFi, I think that's going to be like the spark that really like starts getting
totally.
DeFi like truly parabolic, like how we've never seen before.
So, and that's kind of based off fundamentals. Like fundamentally, it's time and the technology is there, and the UI UX is very very close. I guess from a hype and narrative standpoint, besides AI, are there any other cool, exciting future narratives or hype kind of use cases that you're excited about for
Yeah.
2025?
So this is where the AI part comes in. I think the meat of AI will happen when we're able to have these agents interact with like what the tools that have been being built for the last like 7-8 years now. So once these AI agents can start using these DeFi protocols, or like we're seeing DeFi AI, DeFi. I don't know how you want to. It's DEFAI, so it's DeFi AI hybrid. So I think those are the how the AI will be used is going to be the next kind of hype narrative. So we're already seeing some of that now with Daniele coming back with like his Hey Anon protocol or whatever on Sonic. So we're already seeing some of that now. I think we're in the early stages of that. I think it needs a little bit more time to like percolate. But I do think how AI agents are going to be used within the more micro crypto ecosystem is going to be pretty interesting to see how it plays out. And I don't want to discount memes, man. Like I think the meme market has matured very significantly, and I think people are really starting to stop trading memes, and they're just holding them now. And I think we're seeing like the beginnings of that with like SPX, for example. I think people are, once you lose enough money, it's like, okay, like maybe trading isn't for me. Maybe I'm just going to hold. And I think people are going to start holding their memes, and you're going to start seeing some crazy valuations on some of these like memes, especially like SPX, for example. And I think some of the base memes are still being slept on. Like Doug and me, I'm like a huge, I'm like a loyal, I'm one of the most loyal community members you can find now. So Dog and Me is one of them, and you have like your old school memes, Keycat, Toshi, Miggles. I think you're gonna start seeing some valuations that are like you're gonna look at them in a year from now or something and be like, whoa, like what the hell is going on here? So I think the narrative of like not trading and just starting to believe in your bags is really gonna start taking off.
All right. So, what are your personal plans for Web3 longer term? Like, are you looking to continue to trade and build that up, or create a company, so maybe a media company? What are you thinking?
My passion is outside of crypto. I've been in healthcare for a while now, and the work I do outside of crypto for me personally, I think is far more important than what I can do in crypto. And I all of my schooling is in healthcare, and I think I'm going to stick to healthcare. But in terms of what I think I would like to do in crypto, is I would like to venture further down into the social trading aspect of Web3. I think there's definitely, I don't want to say product market fit because it's still too early to tell. Like like humans are social creatures. We're always looking for, to talk to somebody and share our ideas, and whatever the case may be, we're always looking for some kind of interaction. And I think social trading is just a very natural step for a lot of people to venture down. I think I don't have any massive plans now, but when I log into my like group chat on a daily basis, it gives me this feeling where it's like, I think this could definitely be something like massive. I don't know what that may look like in a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, but it is something that I have spent a lot of time on to date within the last 3, 4 months. And I think I'm going to continue spending more time on it and start investing in it, and maybe like start hiring moderators or whatever the case may be. And the protocol is like that's powering it is being developed. It's still in beta, so I think there's a lot of developments that can happen that can really make the platform super useful to a lot of people, especially new people. Like when you log into crypto Twitter for the first time, the algorithm feeds you such garbage. It's like nobody knows what to follow and not what to, what's BS and what's LARP and what's not. So I think the natural evolution is going to be people seeking out alpha, and like people seeking out groups that they can kind of like belong to, and that's where the meme thesis is too, right? Like memes are communities that people can hold something together, and I think social trading and like these alpha trenches are the next evolution of that.
That's awesome. All right. It is time for the closing questions. These are kind of more quick fire round.
Sure.
All right. What is the price of Bitcoin in 1 year from now?
Man, listen, if you hear my price, you're gonna laugh.
Let's hear
But
it.
in 1 year from now, I think like 330,000 is
Whoa.
like, yeah, I think it's doable.
Wow. So wait, January 26th, 330K.
I think it's
Love it.
doable. Yeah, I think
Love
it's
it.
doable.
All right. What is a book, movie, podcast, TV show, some piece of content that had a large impact on you?
A large impact. I would say Market Wizards. I think that's a very popular answer, probably. A lot of like Twitter and X, they love that book, but I would say Market Wizards was very eye opening to me, in the sense of like learning how important it is to be able to be comfortable holding a position, knowing what you hold, being comfortable in buying tops and adding to them. You like buy. I forget who the trader is, but they say something like, you want to be able to buy high and sell higher, right? Like you want to be able to buy on the way up and sell on the way down. Like those are very, it's the consensus is buy low sell high, right? But it's really not always like that, especially with like longer term plays. You really want to be comfortable, like knowing what you hold and being able to buy higher because you're confident in the play. So Market Wizards, I would say, is like one of the big ones. And then there's a lot of education to be had from a lot of the big X personas if you can sift through the shit posting. Like there's a lot of like value that some of these bigger accounts will give you, just in terms of like learning how to stomach downturns and learning how to position into like your sizing and like being comfortable losing money and understanding it as like paying tuition at learning something. So those are the two things that I would say, the X accounts that have been around for quite some time, if you can learn how to sift through the ship posting.
That's great. Okay. So if you could, speaking of that, one lesson that you could have downloaded into your brain before starting this journey, what would be that one lesson that you could have been like, man, if I would have done this first, or, known this before, diving into this journey, I would have become a lot more successful. What would be that one lesson?
I think the one lesson that I would have loved to know in the very, very beginning is that at the end of the day, it's all pretty much a scam until it proves itself not to be. And once you understand that, there's you can take that negatively or you can take it positively, right? So it's like, okay, I'm investing into something that's like totally brand new. There's a very high chance it's never going to become anything, and I'm comfortable doing that because I understand the risks that are involved, right? So, like Bitcoin was a scam for the longest time until it wasn't, right? Ethereum was a scam for the longest time until it wasn't. Solana was a scam. BNB, XRP, these things were all scams to the the regular Joe until it wasn't. Like now you have the U.S. government is like adopting all these things, and you have ETFs coming out. So if you can if I could have internalized like that, just because it's quote unquote a scam, it's not investable. Or if I could have internalized that in the beginning, I think I would have made a lot more money a lot sooner, and I would have lost a lot less money on the journey.
Awesome. All right. What does success look like for you?
Success for me, I think, is being able to retire comfortably, where I can kind of log in at my leisure, and making sure my kids are taken care of and grown and have families of their own. And I'm not a very materialistic guy. I don't buy clothes and I don't buy cars, and I don't like, these are not things I do. I put work into my house because it's my kids' home. That's where they live and that's where they're going to grow up. And for me, it's really just about, like I said, being able to retire comfortably and making sure my kids have families of their own and are on their way.
I love it. All right, sir. Where can people find you?
I'm always on X at Rb3k. I'm on the Altcoinist trenches. If you go to the Altcoinist website, you can subscribe to my channel if you like. If you don't want to, that's fine, whatever. But I'm always on X. My DMs are a mess. It's very hard to contact me through X because it's just like not. I can't spend time sifting through like a million DMs. It's just not something I can do, unfortunately. But if you reply guy me, I'll reply guy you. We can connect. A lot of connections have happened for me that way. But yeah, X and Altcoinist is where you'll find me.
Amazing. Sir, thank you so much for coming on. This was incredible and I appreciate it. And we will chat soon.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
See ya.